What are we discussing on today's Locked on Dbacks podcast? How the Dbacks offense had extra batting practice against the Marlins pitching, and is Geraldo Perdomo turning into the love child of Luis Arraez and Juan Soto?
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist, and I'm a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, MillardThomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. On today's Locked on D-Backs podcast, we're going to be discussing game one against the Marlins. D-Backs offense going for batting practice against that Marlins pitching staff. Is Geraldo Perdomo the love child of Luis Arraez and Juan Soto? Breaking that down in segment 2, and then wrapping up the podcast by previewing the pitching duel we'll see in game 2 against the Marlins. So jam-packed pod as always for you guys. But first I want to say thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. And of course, one of those platforms is YouTube. We try to go live on YouTube Sunday through Thursday after D-Backs games. So please follow me on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button so you see when I go live. Also follow me on social media at CareerThomas24 for my personal account on Twitter, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram, for the podcast handle so you know when I go live, because I do tweet it out before I go live. And remember, if you do watch this live on YouTube, please comment in the YouTube section, because this is an interactive show. I will read your comments as much as I can throughout the show, so please comment. And now let's get into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. All right, let's talk about D-Backs versus Marlins game number 1, because this was a game where it looked like the D-Backs offense was getting some extra batting practice against the Marlins, because from the jump, this D-Backs team jumped all over Miami, and I felt bad for their rookie Connor Gillespie, because he really struggled. 8 earned runs over 5 innings pitched, and everyone on this D-Backs team, except for Garrett Hampson, sadly, because they took his hit away, everyone outside of Garrett Hampson had a hit in today's game, and everyone outside of Pavin Smith at least scored a run in today's game. So this was a complete team effort by the Arizona Diamondbacks, and it started with the top, of course, with Corbin Carroll, who had a monster grand slam in this game, and it perpetrated down. And I think watching this game against the Miami Marlins, not even just watching it, listening to this game, I think it was the loudest D-Backs game I've ever seen when it came to the ball leaving the bat of Arizona, because I was at work while this game went on. I had my headphones in, listening to the broadcast, casually watching the game. I was legitimately jump scared on that first Jerry home run, because the way it sounded off the bat, I don't think I ever heard a ball as loud hit by Perdomo in his career, and he wasn't the only one. The Carroll home run, the Josh Naylor home run, it sounded like fireworks going off in Miami because of the power of the D-Backs. And what's funny is when you actually look at that Geraldo Perdomo home run, you look at the stats on it, the Perdomo home run, 407 feet, 105 miles an hour off the bat. Really incredible stuff. Would have been a home run in 29 of the 30 ballparks. The one home run, the one ballpark where the Geraldo Perdomo home run wouldn't have counted is Chase Field, which is insane to think about. So thankfully, the D-backs went to one of the only stadiums, or I guess the D-backs stadium is the only stadium it wouldn't have counted. So I guess thankfully the D-backs didn't play this game at home because this home run would not have counted by Perdomo. But the Corbin Carroll grand slam, 108 off the bat, 434 feet. That's a home run in all 30, of course. The Josh Naylor home run looked a lot. It sounded bigger. It looked a lot more crushed than what the stats say. 98 off the bat, only 373 feet. But this was an incredible game by the D-backs offense. By the sixth inning, this one was over. After you had that Corbin Carroll home run, this game was over. And so incredible job by the offense, starting off with Corbin Carroll, starting off with Jerry, and starting off with Josh Naylor. The guys at the top have been crushing the most for Arizona this season, and they, of course, again crushed today for the D-backs. Merrill Kelly, of course, on the mound. Fantastic. Maybe the best start of the season for Kelly. And he was a little bit shaky at times. We still saw him have some command issues. Obviously only had one walk, but I still don't think he had the perfect feel for his fastball in this game. I think a lot of his success came because he was going against the Miami Marlins, but we'll still take 6 innings, 3 hits, 9 strikeouts. Like, considering that Yankee start that Merrill Kelly had and some of the issues we've seen with the walks, it's felt like such a bad season, or at least such an up and down season for Merrill Kelly. But again, we just look at the game log and like the numbers overall. Like, if you take away that start from the New York Yankees, it's 5.1, 1 earned run against the Cubs. It's 6 innings, 2 earned runs against the Orioles. And then again, 6 innings, 1 earned run today against the Marlins. So it's like he's essentially giving you a quality start of 2 earned runs or less every single time out there, except for that one time against the New York Yankees. So Merrill Kelly, maybe a lot of the pushback we've seen against him, maybe it hasn't been warranted because he was fantastic today. The offense was fantastic today. But the one negative I have to discuss that I see some people talking about in the comment section, Eric O, I see you, because he says the Mantiply needs to go. Joe Mantiply right now is the weakest part of at least the D-backs pitching staff, not the overall team, because Eugenio and Lourdes Gurriel, probably more Lourdes Gurriel, they have their own cases, but Joe Mantiply is the biggest weakness right now for the D-backs and their pitching staff. I love the bullpen top to bottom, but right now Mantiply is the one guy, when he comes out the pen, you feel like anything can happen in a moment's notice. And with Kendall Graveman and Kevin McGinkle still coming back, Dre Jameson in the minor leagues, there's no reason Joe Mantiply should be here for the full season. Yes, those other guys I just mentioned aren't lefties like Joe Mantiply, but we saw in the game today, he had an opportunity against 5 left-handed batters and only got one of those guys out. Joe Mantiply, a lefty specialist, can't get lefties out anymore. Because of that, D-backs are probably going to have to figure out another solution moving forward, and it could just be one of the guys returning from injury or calling up someone from the minor leagues and then saying, pack your bags, Joe Mantiply, or trading him somewhere else. It's been a fantastic ride. He was an all-star back in 2022. I got a big soft spot in my heart for Joe Mantiply, but this is a team trying to win the World Series, and right now, he just isn't good enough for the D-backs bullpen, and so the D-backs are probably going to have to figure out something to do with Joe Mantiply's spot as the bullpen gets healthier, but overall, great game 1 by the Arizona Diamondbacks. Got to see some big offensive hits by Geraldo Perdomo, who we'll discuss because he's in the midst of a breakout season, and we'll discuss that in segment number 2. But hey, if you're ever thinking about buying tickets to an upcoming D-backs game, then the best place to do that, of course, is going to be Game Time, because nothing's better than catching an MLB game live, the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and of course, the smell of the ballpark food. I love Give Me a Churro Dog at Chase Field. And if you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever with last minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as game time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. That's my favorite thing with Game Time. I don't buy tickets anymore in advance, especially when it comes to concerts. That's my favorite thing to do on Game Time. The day of the concert, that's when I go on the app because that's when you'll find the cheapest tickets and the best seats. Trust me, Kendrick Lamar coming here at the end of May. I am not going to buy my ticket for that concert until the day of, and best believe I will be using Game Time. I will be using Game Time to do so. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Let's get that banner out the way. Let's read some comments here before we talk about Geraldo Perdomo and if he's the love child of Luis Arraez and Juan Soto. Frog fan said, I plan to go to a Dbacks game away and sit in the front row by the bullpen. If you were sitting by the bullpen, which actually I don't think I'm going to read that one because I am struggling to read that one live, Frog fan. I am so sorry. I'm going to read this other one because I think you wrote the same comment in twice because I see a couple grammatical errors here. I'm going to sit by the D-backs bullpen and show up early to see if I could get a signature. Who should I ask? And also, who's watching Joe Mantiply? Because it's like watching AJ Puck pitch in the 9th inning. You know, sometimes it's easier than not to read these comments live on YouTube. There's no editing, so you're going to just hear me struggle sometimes if the comment is not, perfectly, grammatically correct. So I'm sorry, Frog fan, for messing up your comment there on the YouTube live stream. But let's now talk about Geraldo Perdomo. And if he is now the new love child of both Luis Arraez and Luis Arraez and Juan Soto. Because when you think about Arraez and Juan Soto, you think about these two kings of the strike zone, two elite leaders in plate discipline, right? And right now, Geraldo Perdomo is doing his best impression of both of those guys. And the way he's doing it, he's kind of taking the strengths of both Luis Arraez and Juan Soto. And that's why I'm asking the question, is Geraldo Perdomo the love child of both of those players? Because when you think of Luis Arraez, he's this guy, doesn't strike out, high contact ability, right? He's going to lead the league, probably an average. That's what he does every single season. Probably is going to have more hits than strikeouts, more walks than strikeouts, because Luis Arraez is elite at getting on base via a single and not striking out. Well, you look at the numbers of Luis compared to Jerry this season, and it is mighty close because entering today's game, and Jerry actually struck out a couple times in this game against the Marlins, only struck out twice all season entering today's game, struck out twice in game 1 against Miami. Very interesting to see. But entering the game against Miami, 2.9% K rate for Perdomo. For Luis Arraez, 1.3%. And we know how insane Luis Arraez is. He's been around like 5% the last 3 seasons. So the fact Geraldo Perdomo is now within spitting distance of Arraez, who no one has really come close in terms of the strikeout rates or lack thereof. Jerry is doing just that, never striking out, doing his best Luis Arraez impression, while also getting the barrel to the ball. We know Luis Arraez, contact ability, right? 97% contact rate this year for Luis. Well, Geraldo Perdomo is at 93%. And the thing that's really interesting about him, Geraldo Perdomo swings at way less pitches out the zone than a Luis Arraez. Half the time, Perdomo compared to Luis Arraez, he's swinging at pitches outside the zone. So the contact ability and the strikeout rate right there. Yes, Luis Arraez is still better, but if you had to ask right now who's the second best player in Major League Baseball at just contact ability plus not striking out, it's probably Geraldo Perdomo. And then when you look at Juan Soto's numbers and how that compares to Jerry, well, we know Juan Soto, on-base king, right? No one draws more walks than him. You look at his walk rates the last few years, insane. He's basically 18 to 20% walk rate each of the last few years. More walks and strikeouts, like insane numbers. But Juan Soto, 20% walk rate this year. Perdomo entering today's game, he's at a 18.8% walk rate. So, yes, Juan Soto slightly better Perdomo, just like Luis Arraez, better, slightly better than Perdomo. But in both cases, Jerry is right there with the numbers. A 20% walk rate for Soto compared to 18.8% for Geraldo Perdomo. Plus, he strikes out at a way less rate than Juan Soto. And we know Juan Soto has the slugging, right? We know he had the 40 home runs last year, over 500 slug the last couple seasons, a career slug of 531 for Juan Soto. Well, this season, Perdomo entered today's game with a 490 slug. He's going to leave today's game with a 518 slug. And so, yes, Perdomo, the power or lack thereof has always been like one of his biggest weaknesses. Well, at least in 2025, he has that power. He has that slug. He has the OBP plus slugging of a Juan Soto with the walk rate of a Juan Soto, with the K rate and the contact ability of a Luis Arraez. This is the breakout season for Geraldo Perdomo. When you look at his numbers, what he's done in the clutch for the Dbacks this season, he's been absolutely insane. Runners in scoring position entering game one against the Marlins. 462 average, a 1293 OPS. He's been fantastic. 2 outs. He has a 1065 OPS with 2 outs. This guy just does not make outs. This guy does not strike out. He gets on base a ton. You look at his numbers against the breaking pitch this year because, of course, he's crushing the fastball. 371 average against the fastball. But last year, he only had a 172 average against the breaking pitch, expected average of 202, expected slug of 256. Well, this season, a 400 average against the breaking ball, an expected average of 473, an expected slug of 652. Like, he is crushing fastballs. He's waiting on breaking pitches and crushing those as well. Like, Perdomo is having a breakout year, and it's legit. It's for real. And if he continues to do this, he's going back to the All-Star game, guys. If Perdomo continues to play the way he's playing right now, he's going to go back to the All-Star game. Second to only Mookie Betts in WRC Plus among shortstops in the National League, or I think among all shortstops in Major League Baseball. The only thing Perdomo is struggling with right now is elevated pitches. If you look at the strike zone, just that top row is the only place Perdomo is struggling, but every single area outside of that on the strike zone, he is crushing. The plate discipline this season for Perdomo is on another level. He is right there in the mix with the Juan Sotos and the Luis Arraez types of the best guys in the world at creating contact, not striking out, and getting on base. This is a breakout season for Jerry, and Jerry will be going back at this rate to the 2025 All-Star Game. Now we'll discuss the D-backs' big pitching duel in Game 2 of this series in segment number 3. But hey, I want to talk to you guys about Prize Picks because basketball and hockey playoffs are heating up, and there's no better way to turn your sports knowledge into real rewards than with Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you're in. You can even combine players across sports, basketball, hockey, baseball, and more for your chance to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Yes, 2,000 times your cash. With the Lakers playing, I'm going to be taking the over on Doncic points, LeBron points, Reeves points, and if I hit, I could 2,000 times your cash. If you want to do the same thing, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and now let's discuss that pitching duel in Game 2 because you might not think it's a pitching duel after seeing how the D-backs obliterated the Marlins pitching in game number 1. You might think, do the Marlins really have someone to contend with this D-backs offense, which is one of the best in Major League Baseball? Yes, they do, because going out there in game 2 for the Miami Marlins is probably their best pitcher right now in Max Meyer, who has been a guy on the cusp the last couple years as a breakout candidate. He has been pretty good and pretty solid at times. Maybe the numbers don't back it up, but so far in 2025, I mean, if you want very easy, digestible numbers, 18 innings pitched, 4 earned runs, and 9.5 strikeouts per 9. Like, he's been fantastic this season for the Marlins. He's been their best pitcher, and I think the D-backs do have to worry about him because he has been someone that has been incredible all year for Miami. And right now, he has a wicked pitch that has been devastating opposing teams. It is his slider. Don't really see a lot of young pitchers with the slider as their number one go-to pitch. But for Max Meyer, it has been so effective, so deadly this year. He has given up only 3 hits in 31 at-bats on that slider. Good for a sub 100 batting average allowed. And the whiff percentage on the slider, because no one has been able to hit it so far in 2025, 44% whiff rate on that slider with a 30% put away percentage as well. That's what the D-backs offense has to watch out for. You have to watch out for that slider because it is devastating, knee buckling. If the D-backs offense is not patient and watching out for that, they will get crushed because his secondary pitch off that slider is a 95 mile per hour fastball. And so you're going to have to really contend, be patient, wait on that slider because he's going to work in that fastball right off of it to keep you off balance. And the thing about Max Meyer, which is kind of interesting, which you really wouldn't expect, which might kind of, it might break Torey Lovullo's brain here. I'm curious to see what kind of lineup he utilizes against Max Meyer. Because if you actually look at the numbers from Meyer this season and you look at the splits, Meyer as a right-handed pitcher has struggled against right-handed batters dramatically. Like, he has been way worse this season against righties as opposed to lefties. 842 OPS, a 310 average allowed against righties, only a 154 average, and a 400 OPS allowed against lefties. Quite literally half the stats, like double the stats against righties as opposed to lefties. And so for the D-backs and Torey Lovullo, is he just going to look at Max Meyer and say, because he's a righty, let me stack my lineup with lefties? Maybe that's a smart decision. Or maybe we should look at some of our struggling righties like the Eugenio's, Lourdes Gurriel, and use this actually as a launching pad for them to get going, because even though the D-backs scored 10 runs in this first game of the series, Gurriel had 1 hit, Eugenio had 1 hit and a couple strikeouts. Like, I don't know if they exactly got going after game 1 against Miami. So hopefully after 2 games, those guys can get going, and maybe they could get going in an unexpected way against a Max Meyer. So if Torey Lovullo was thinking about sitting a Gurriel for a Jake McCarthy or Alek Thomas because there's a righty on the mound, I would actually say keep Gurriel in the game for this one because Meyer has struggled mostly against right-handed batters. And then it's a pitching duel because the D-backs are going to be throwing out their best starter this season in Brandon Pfaadt, who has been very good. At least 6 innings pitched in every start this season for Arizona. He is our workhorse. There are just a couple things Pfaadt has to work on, as we always discuss, if he wants to go from a good pitcher, that number 3, number 4 starter, to a legitimate frontline starter in Major League Baseball. There are just a couple things he has to do. We've already seen him start to do it because in his most recent start, what did Brandon Pfaadt not do? He did not give up the long ball. He did not give up a home run. And because of that, it led to his best start of the season. 6 innings, no earned runs. We need to see more of that from Pfaadt. Can he get us a string of starts together where he doesn't allow the long ball? Because as we always contend, Once Fott stops giving up home runs, that's when he'll become a true number 2 starter in Major League Baseball. So he needs to stop doing that. Didn't do in his most recent start. Let's get another start under your belt with no home runs, please. And then the other thing Fott has to do is he needs to start just racking up more strikeouts. This is a guy who was one of the premier strikeout throwers in the minors, right? 200 Ks. It hasn't been done in like 10 years since Matt Moore, whatever. His first couple years in the big leagues, like the strikeout numbers were pretty good. And they did get better from year 1 to year 2. When you look at his K rate, it was 22% his first year, 24% his second year. And so you're hoping maybe 25, 26% in 2025. So far, that K rate has dipped down to 17%. Now, the walk rate has also dipped down, so you do like to see that. But the K rate also shouldn't dip down. We need to see the K rate go up a little bit more, less home runs, more strikeouts. If Brandon Pfaadt could do that, he could be one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. He already does a great job of battling through starts. This is a guy that you could pretty much guarantee he's going to go out there and give you at least 5 2/3, right? Like, even when Brandon Pfaadt's struggling, he always finds a way to at least eat innings and save the bullpen and pitch deep into ball games. Brandon Pfaadt is a grinder at the end of the day. We know he has a big game mentality. We've seen him in the postseason. So we know this guy is wired the way we need him to be a great pitcher one day for the D-backs. There are just little things fundamentally, little details he has to get better at. Once he does that, Brandon Pfaadt will be one of the premier pitchers in Major League Baseball. So would love to see that get started against an offense that, again, more middle of the pack, more below league average. Should it be an offense that dominates you? As we saw at Merrill Kelly today, you can have a really good start. And even if you hadn't had a start yet this year where you really racked up a lot of strikeouts, Merrill Kelly, 9 strikeouts today. Hopefully, Brandon Pfaadt has a day where he gets himself 8 strikeouts in game 2. So I might actually go on FanDuel and bet the over on the Pfaadt strikeouts in game 2 against the Miami Marlins. Well, that's it for this edition of the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Dose it.